Welcome to the Reboot Chronicles, connecting you to the world's top leaders and CEOs rebooting their organizations and themselves with revealing stories to help you prosper in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean DeBias, and as a serial CEO who's led dozens of companies that created thousands of jobs and billions in revenue, my passion is uncovering powerful lessons that can inspire you to reboot your organization, your career, and your life. Listen and subscribe wherever you get podcasts or at rebootchronicles.com. Today on the Reboot Chronicles, we welcome one of Silicon Valley's most innovative tech leaders, Yinglian Xie, who is the CEO of DataVisor. At the cutting-edge intersection of AI, cybersecurity, and fintech, Yinglian has built a company that isn't just fighting fraud, which we're going to get into today, but it's also redefining how the world protects itself in real time, something we've talked a lot about on the show as we've had other cybersecurity companies on. For those of you who continue to get sketchy emails in your inbox like me, I think I received 3 this morning, this is all good news for you, so listen in. Under her leadership, DataVisor has emerged as a global force in AI-driven fraud and risk management with a massive revenue growth rate now. The company just landed on the Forbes FinTech 50 alongside players like SoFi and Affirm, who we've had on, who are also, by the way, DataVisor clients. After raising almost $100 million across 6 funding rounds, I think they are on the track to be one of the next big unicorns in this space. Yinglian brings a rare mix of academic rigor and industry leadership with a PhD from Carnegie Mellon and deep roots at Microsoft Research, and a stack of impressive awards, including one of American bankers' most influential women. Good to see you, Yinglian.
Hi, it's my great pleasure to join you. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, lots to talk about. I'm most interested in your journey. You've been at this for over 10 years since leaving the mothership of Microsoft. Maybe talk about that later. But the Wall Street Journal, I think, put you on the top 25 tech companies to watch back in 2018, and calling out that your machine learning approach to fraud detection was way ahead of the curve. And man, the Wall Street Journal isn't often right. They were right about you. Fast forward to today, DataVisor is basically, projected to be the biggest name in fintech, or one of them coming up. The Forbes 50 list is nice, and you continue to do a lot of AI fraud protection, which I want to get into. So I was just wondering, can you take us back to that time when you were kind of just how it was to kind of grow and pivot this business to the position you're in today?
Definitely. I think we can start talking about some of the DataVisor's founding stories. And in fact, if you look at my career growth and my area of work, pretty much I would say I've devoted my entire kind of career part into fighting cybersecurity, kind of all kinds of attacks, and fraud is a big part that we face, and different kind of financial crimes, etc. So if you look at about 10 years ago, kind of when we roughly kind of started DataVisor, that's where I work at Microsoft Research. I would say that's a time we started seeing kind of all kinds of activities start moving digitally online. And that's when we started seeing that the fraud attacks and the cybersecurity massively evolving and changed very dramatically to become a very different scale. So those are the kind of the days when the first wave of under attack are these high-tech internet companies. And actually when from my perspective, when I left Microsoft Research to start DataVisor, big part of that was motivated by different kind of fraud and attacks. And we've seen across the industry, we've seen not just Microsoft, but my co-founder, Fang Yu, and I got also approached by a number of other companies like Yelp and Pinterest, Facebook, and Cloudflare, TinyURL, all these different companies, it came to the 2 of us asking whether we could collaborate with them, help them analyze data, and help them defend against the different kind of fraud, abuse problems that they face, because they were in that massive kind of fast growth era. A lot of users, a lot of fake users, a lot of account compromise, a lot of things started manifesting as a big problem. So that's where DataVisor kind of gets started. We do not at that time and try to solve this one specific potential vulnerability or one specific problem, because you can see these different companies, even within Microsoft, when we worked on these problems, you would have problem from payments, you would have problem from advertisement and Azure Access, Office 365. No matter where you go, we saw seeing different kind of fraud abuse problems coming up. So when DataVisor gets started, then our goal is, can we redefine the industry and try to build something more general to protect all of us, like accounts and users, from seemingly various different type of kind of attacks and fraud, but all rooted under the same kind of dark kind of industry. And also at the time, we see frauds being changing, evolving. It becomes arms race. Whatever the defense mechanism we put in, they will adapt, they will adjust. And therefore, some of the fundamental ideas, can we also build some company to come up with some technology that is a little bit more robust? And meaning no matter how fraudsters evolve, change, we have some approach to be able to defend against them in a more proactive way. So that was a dream that we tried to set, and a very noble kind of goal, try to protect every one of us.
Right.
I know kind of we making a lot of progress, but you see that fraud is still getting a very big problem, and impact us not just from these high-tech internet services and different kind of portals that we use, but started moving into even the more traditional area, financial service and the transactions, and become even more, I would say, vicious of creating more damage. And if you look at, for example, last year, the global dollar amount lost just to scam kind of all these fraud losses, it's already surpassing $1 trillion. It's just amazingly high. Sometimes when I tell friends about this, they were saying, are you exaggerating number because you work in the industry fraud? But that's the statistics we face. And so on average person, we receive these.
McKinsey's estimates are a little lower, but who cares? It's hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, and people are scared. And I like the way you pivoted and you focused on, I called it fintech in the opening, because guess what? That's, you follow the money. That's where the crooks have gone. That's where the biggest impact. And as you said, you can be more malicious. How do you help these guys kind of contain the blast zone of these explosions, to use a terrible metaphor? Just this whole, it seems like a lot of these cyber companies just help mitigate, but you're trying to actually get ahead of it and eliminate as well, right?
So we definitely try to become kind of a more proactive. I would say the mindset is, how do we become more proactive? The reason is that, like you said, whether it's in cyber, whether it's fraud, a lot of thinking is being reactive. Reactive meaning we want to see what the fraudsters, attackers do, and then we come up with solutions and trying to defend against it. By that mindset and thinking, we're already one step behind, because we have to see what happened, what loss we have, and then come up with develop strategies to deal with it. So it means we will always see the loss first. And the goal for all of us is try to be more preventive and to try to be proactive. And that's the only way for us to get ahead of it. So I would say the fundamental DataVisor's mission is to turn this around and change the game, so that no matter what new attacks might come up, what fraud might adapting, we can gain the upper hand and we can be protected to some extent. So that's kind of where we believe the technology plays a deeper root as well. And so that's what kind of DataVisors build, to really look at the different kind of technologies and to build a kind of forefront leading the platform to protect all kinds of different transactions end to end.
Yeah, I've heard that so many times. So if you followed me around the RSA show out in San Francisco, all the cybersecurity vendors there, hundreds of billions of dollars being spent on this for 20 years now since I got involved. Most consumers would think, "Oh, I'm safe," and I'm like, "No, you're not. You're not safe. The bad guys are getting bigger, and their tool set is getting more enabled by AI and other things." Last night, I received an invitation to a party. It looked like a normal invitation on my email. I'm not making this up. And like a fool, I clicked on it. But usually on a e-invite, you just click on and accept. But there was a download was the next thing. I'm like, no, there's no way a party invite needs to be downloaded. But some of the gift card ones do. So, yeah, sure enough, our friend, he actually works in the government. Somehow he got hacked, and 2,000 of these invites went out, and we weren't sure what they were phishing for, but it these creepy lurking everything on your device. Holding up my little Android here is suspect now. So, what? Two questions out of that. You're using AI to counterattack it. What are the crooks? The organizations, these big groups, how are they using AI to actually make this even harder? And then follow up is, how are you guys using AI to fight them? It's both sides.
Yeah, so if you look at from the dark side, how they're using AI, and I would say they have same access to all of us and whatever technology they have access, and they, to some extent, also move very fast as well, meaning they try it on production data. They try it on real users, all of us as well. And they don't have review committees and they don't have any regulatory governance. So they just move as fast
No
as they
focus
could. And then
groups,
they
no.
share information. Yeah, they have social media, they share this information. And but if you look at the fundamentals, what I mean, kind of, there are a few things that they're leveraging. Number one is they use deepfake very extensively. We've seen that. We've seen, for example, today, there are dozens of technologies out there for you to produce even a fake video that look realistic. All they need is 30 seconds of your video clip, and 5 minutes you can produce it.
Yeah, and with
So they can
people
produce
like us that have hundreds of hours of video up there, we're
super
targets.
easy,
Super
exactly.
easy.
And so
Uh,
that means they can even set up a video conferencing of the selected people
oh
that they
wow.
want, and to start targeting and the specific victims. So we've seen some of the largest, like scam and fraud, that with these kind of successful video conferencing, fake ones, can successfully trick victims to wire $25 million in one shot. And this is
Whoa.
kind of real things happening. So this is today what we are seeing, the level of sophistication and scale that fraudsters play. And second, they were very targeted. And you and I kind of receive a lot of phishing messages. If you ask around, and we hardly see people who never receive any scam kind of messages, emails.
Yep.
Sometimes we feel, oh, if I'm alerted, I won't fall into that. This is sometimes because you're not the targeted ones. If you were targeted ones, they really craft the specific type of messages that make it very challenging to differentiation. And so some of the fraud, like rings that we look at, the victim demographic are so similar. And whether
Yep.
they're younger demographic, very digital oriented, you can see a group of them being tricked into comfortably, for example, purchasing electronic goods, higher threshold than the average kind of transaction, and fall into those victims. And then you can also see senior type of also victim groups, very similar demographic, very similar digital presence. So those are the level of sophistications that we talk about. So we call these type of all kind of coordinated massive fraud rings. And today, in almost all of these attacks are coordinated, targeted.
Yep.
So we're not dealing with amateur ones and doing things for fun. We
No, these
literally
guys are
dealing with an industry.
they're pros. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So if you and I were pretty sharp, have a tough time sorting out, because I get some and it looks like I have to stop and call the person. That's how bad it's become. Um, so what should people do to better protect themselves here in the second half of the decade? It's getting so sophisticated. Any tips for both employees and just consumers in general?
So yeah, I would say from every day, like sort of you and I, kind of a consumer, if we put on our consumer hats, I would say the mindset is very important. And today's mindset is not really to treat everything like benignly. We must become more vigilant. become more suspicious of every incoming solicitation of the
It's
messages,
it's
of
so
the
it's so
emails.
exhausting though. People get tired of that.
It is indeed. So everything you have to think about twice. Does it make sense? For example, over the long weekend, I received lots of like scam like messages,
Yeah.
started targeting the DMV record. They start posting a new DMV rule taking effect. If you don't do things, blah blah would happen, and and so you can see those things keep evolving, and therefore the mindset almost need to entirely shift toward most of things are benign and most of things are friendly, toward most of things probably are actually bad.
Ah, that's
And
good
so
shift.
that's actually unfortunate kind of a mindset shift because we now live in a world almost seeing a lot of the communications can potentially be hostile, trick you into something. So that's not the fun part of it. But on the other hand, this is a reality we live in. And so that's kind of where one side of the sad truth is that we have to be alerted all the time. On the other hand, for enterprise and the companies, I really think the industry must collaborate together. As you also mentioned, that the leverage of AI, it shouldn't be just the fraudsters and attackers using AI. We must also leverage all kinds of machine learning, advanced technology, AI together in a much more aggressive way to change the game entirely. Because otherwise, if we don't want to live in that constant vigilant mode, we have to change things dramatically as well.
Exactly. And what I see inside companies, they back to the RSA show, hundreds of cybersecurity vendors. A lot of them been on the show, like Zscaler and a few of the others. And so the CISO, they call them, is become the hot job in companies over the last 10 years. But even they're confused because there's so many ways to protection at the edge and back at the core. And how do they sort that out? How does a C-suite leader figure out whether they should be partnering with you or the 20 other big dog cybersecurity companies?
So yeah, so I would say come down. If you look at DataVisor, our differentiator, a couple kind of two areas
Yeah.
that we majorly kind of stand out, and for us to become the front runner, essentially to help everybody. Number one is change that mindset into there's only certain areas that are vulnerable, and because whatever product and new service we launch, we potentially vulnerable. We open up routes for the attackers to attack us and for the fraudsters. Therefore, data advisors, that the big mission idea is to provide this customer lifecycle protection. And which means we must have this centralized kind of intelligence and computational kind of a portal to be able to that unify this traditionally siloed, pointed kind of those isolated point solutions
Yep.
into more unified intelligence. Because we need more data, we need more intelligence, we need to be able to understand our customers better to protect them, and therefore so that we can have a consistent protection experience across a variety of different products. So this is a number one data advisor's mission is working on, is to break that siloed approach and to make it like one unified kind of portal, and which we call end-to-end risk and fraud platform, which means we access to different kind of behaviors, different activities, and across that different type of transactions, and not just for one particular user, but be able to look across customers to identify that emergent patterns. And when we are dealing with coordinated fraud rings, we must also detect them at the same time, detect the whole ring instead of individually. Because if
Yep.
you look at each individual fraudster's activity, individual victim, everything might look like benign, nothing suspicious coming up. But if you put them together, you
Yeah.
start seeing patterns, everything makes sense. Wow, there's a wave attack. Therefore, detection needs to happen at that level too. And that's also more efficient because that means we are detecting the entire fraud rings. We're not detecting them one by one. So
Or
that's a lot more
company,
powerful.
or company by company. Since you handle a lot of the brands, and fintech's one of your big verticals, you can actually use the data from all the banks or all the institutions you're working with to better identify and shut down threats because they're rarely just focused on one institution, right?
Yes, absolutely. Also, from an industry perspective, be able to share that intelligence. And you
Yeah.
can see the upstream, also downstream. For example, you might have, a fintech with digital wallet service become the upstream and the target of fraudsters to gain kind of account takeovers, account credentials, a lot of accounts. And then downstream victim of a cross-border, like money transfer service and being exploited using these stolen digital wallets and to start a cross-border money laundering and money transfer activities. So
Yep.
in that kind of ecosystem, you started seeing that different kind of legitimate services are being leveraged for this underground kind of target. We saw the evil kind of fraud rings at different stages, and therefore the visibility into at this level and the coordinated fraud ring level is massively helpful. And that comes to the second part of differentiator we talk about is how do we service these patterns come up? How do we make it very efficient? And for us human, looking at each transaction, it's almost like seeking kind of needles in the haystacks, right? And extremely challenging. But with AI, with the technology coming up, and we can be armed to the next level as well. So I would say AI and next generation technology is a big differentiator of DataVisor as well. And so we've been committed to a technology called unsupervised machine learning, specifically targeting of detecting these coordinated fraud rings altogether and finding out the new emerging patterns. Sometimes we even call them sleeper cells.
Yep.
So everything looks like, hey, they're in that dormant mode until they're activated and start doing bad things. And our goal is to be able to detect even the dormant activities and to shut down the activation and
That's brilliant.
pace.
Yeah.
So
So you can run
that
like,
requires,
sorry. Yeah. In
yeah,
the AI speak, you can run like a small language model on what they're doing. They're just experimenting, getting ready for the big attack. That's actually brilliant. I love how you're sharing cross competitors. When people ask me, they're like, what should I do? I'm like, well, anything that has value in it, your bank accounts, your travel accounts, your anything that's got any type of anything, especially personal information, always have, 2FA, two-factor authentication. Is that even enough anymore? Is besides a complicated password, what else can consumers do right now? Forget about the
oh
email.
yeah, we started seeing like 2FA is a must to have, but at the
Must
same
have.
time, 2FA doesn't sometimes even protect us.
Yeah,
So there are
especially if
channels and
someone
text
gets your phone.
messages.
If you leave your phone somewhere, that's all your 2FAs in the phone. I'm shaking my phone for those of you not
Oh,
watching.
absolutely. So you've seen a frost ring specific targeting, for example, surfers, because surfers going to leave their cell phone around and they have driver's
Surfers, like
license
surfboards
around.
on the ocean.
Yeah, surfers on the ocean, they're a big target because why they leave these
Uh,
outside in their car and on the beach, and
Dude,
then
where's my
frost can
phone?
access this. Yes, that's totally. So you can see that just specific targets of
Wow.
access to our phone and break into the second factor authentication. So that's a pathetic kind of a part. And then what we wish is, can we just our activities protected, monitored all the time, and yet we want zero factor authentication, right?
Yeah, yeah. People think it's a pain, but I don't. I just wait for it to come here, and then you have to get into the phone. That's hard enough. But yeah, a lot of people think it's just a pain in the you know what.
So that's kind of the mindset shift. And then some, you mentioned the company C levels, what they need to do. And I
Yes,
think that's a big part of it. And then many times, if you look at the legacy thinkings and historical thinkings, you still think about if we authenticate users, meaning upfront to validate credentials, we're all good. That's no longer the case. As you can see with second factor authentication, that can be easily broken. And there's so many also identity data out there. I bet all of us identity data leaked somewhere in the dark web. They have access to us something. So there's a lot of synthetic identities. There's a lot of real user identities got leaked and then
yep,
manipulated and by opening all kinds of accounts and doing bad things. So therefore, authentication itself is already way kind of not enough. as a strong kind of defense mechanisms. So that historic thinking, if we just focus on authentication, does not get us protected. Instead, what we advocate is almost everything we do, the activities, we want constant protection. We want constant every transaction being monitored, being protected. And by looking at the history, by looking at the fraud ring, we talk about bigger picture,
Right.
what other people have been doing, and how certain fraudsters is breaking maybe into my account. As a normal user, I didn't realize these things, but there are 10 other things going on. Therefore, from a detection perspective, they can pick up that signal faster, right? And so that zero-factor authentication, constant monitoring protection, and I bet that's what we want as consumers. We want convenience. We do not want to be alerted all the time. Did I set up a second factor authentication? Am I kind of protective enough, right?
Right.
Of our cell phones, etc. And so whenever the first defense line is broken, we are paranoid because everything can be gone.
Exactly.
And we want, even when phone is stolen, nothing can be stolen. Then we live in a much nicer world. So that's what the DataVisors also kind of go into the dream, into the end dream that we are getting to, is we talk about customer lifecycle protection. When we talk about lifecycle protection, we don't mean just a few key points. We truly mean every transaction, every interaction. We want some monitoring to be on, to be assured that we are protected.
Yep.
And we want to achieve that. We talk about that in real time, every time things happen. That means we also need to step up significantly, and not just the AI part, but the data infrastructure, the ability to scrutinize things extremely fast in low latency every single time. So I think we have a lot of technology, like ingredients out there. So that's where we are putting everything together to achieve that end goal.
Yeah, you guys have rebooted this company. I have a feeling you guys drink a lot of coffee at your office because you have to move so quickly to stay ahead of this. What's been the biggest challenge for you building this rocket ship of a company?
So from the challenge perspective is we constantly face different kind of industries and also different type of customers mindset, and that's the biggest battle we're looking at many times.
Every vertical is different. Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody's kind of different. And when they look at their vertical, sometimes until they got hit very hard, we often have very contemplated kind of thoughts. Oh, we're unique. We're not vulnerable to this attack. So we faced with the customers many times when we first chatted. They don't feel that. They feel we're being exaggerated. They feel, oh, we're just starting at the business. We probably no need something super sophisticated from the get-go, and until they get hit on the fraud waves.
Yeah.
And they come back to us, say, oh, we wish maybe last year we should just have kind of moved forward, right? It's kind of that mindset. But so today's fraudsters, they don't just target these consumers like us. They also target business. They monitor. They monitor with social media. They monitor which business are launching which new functions and features. We talk about this real-time transaction like Zelle, etc. They're monitoring who's launching that service. And their idea is when you just launch that, you probably don't have a great fraud protection system in place, because usually that's not the first thing you want to put in.
No.
And many times they're right. It's a kind of a mindset we still have. So I would really say from the challenge perspective, I think the whole industry sharing this challenge is our mindset changed and significantly to be more proactive. We need to be more proactive in our mindset to take on proactive technology and to become more proactive.
You know, back when we were setting the cable TV standards and the HDTV standards, I was on a lot of committees with the government, and sounds like you need some kind of a consortium to bring all this together. Is that something you're working on?
So data sharing consortium is a big part of the industry needs as well. And so we got regulatory barriers.
What if
for
that
example,
gets hacked?
The data sharing. Oh, so from that perspective, a secure infrastructure, so you see security fraud going hand in hand.
Yeah.
And we need to have a security kind of infrastructure ourselves in
Yeah.
order to not to become a big kind of like you mentioned, the battleground, and where everybody want to get the access to the information. So it is multi kind of a level of defense that we need to work on. But at the same time, and if we have some approach, that means no matter what attackers doing change, if we have something, if you and I have some magic wand, right? Like we're looking at to
Yeah.
say, hey, we got a robust approach and a method. And that method itself, and then even though attackers knows that they cannot get around it, then I would say we're truly more proactive. That's where we come to it is to be able to detect this new and unknown fraudsters. And as they evolve, that capability is, I feel, a lot of the players in the industry missing and didn't realize how important it is. And
Okay.
technologies we mentioned, such as unsupervised machine learning, gets us one step toward that. But we need to realize that this is something that is game changing, that can dramatically change our position in the industry. Is because, yes, you've seen today's kind of fraud, you've got today's data, assuming fraud has access to the same thing. Tomorrow they will change, they will adapt.
Yeah.
But if we have something robust, we still can detect them, right? So then we're not in that vulnerable position. We can say, we actually, at least we won't be subject to large scale attacks because we have something. Whenever this happens, we will automatically adapt ourselves too.
Yep. Got it. Yingli, I want to thank you for joining us today. Before we go real quick, I'm curious, how's your journey been? You were at the mothership, Microsoft, and the research group, well-funded group. And what was it like jumping into entrepreneurial land and, changing your whole life around like this?
Yes, there's both kind of the professional kind of part and the personal side. And if you retrospect or look at that, that's a kind of a almost like a personal kind of reboot kind of story, right? Before that, I was in that more research academic side, and
Mm-hmm.
now suddenly jump into the very other end of the spectrum of
Deep
looking
end.
at the
Yes.
startup and entrepreneurship in the company. So there's a lot of, I would say there's a lot of unknowns at that time. And there's both excitement. The excitement is being in research, we've got exposed to a lot of attacks going on. So we got this dream, we got this excitement. We wanted to build something to change the world and to be much more secure. And we feel we have a lot of great ideas. There's a lot of excitement, but on the personal side, that brings a lot of uncertainty. And particular when we got started, my co-founder and I, we were two women co-founders,
Yes.
and my younger kids were 3 year old, and my co-founder's younger kids 1 year old.
Oh boy,
So kind of looking
that's
at
busy.
yes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
very busy time, and jump into something now suddenly. Not when we left Microsoft, right? We and need to start from scratch. Everything start from scratch, and we don't have an office. And we need to start a company. We're not funded at that time, right? Just the two
Yep.
of us.
Right.
And so that's a big unknown, I would say. And also there are family side of expectations. What's workload expectation? What's income expectation? I told my husband that time, I said, well, look, and how about you just and treat me now suddenly I kind of don't have this work kind of right. Just treat me as a housewife, don't have income anymore, and except I just don't do housewife work.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
my,
Yeah.
my
You
husband
do it.
joked,
Yeah. I like it.
and my husband said, "Well, you were never a housewife. Now you don't even work and have an income." So, so he's thinking about the flip away, right?
Yeah.
And so managing kind of family expectations and
So
dealing
important.
with that is a really, I would say, big shift and change.
Yeah.
And personally,
Yeah. Especially having lived in Silicon Valley myself, it's even a more challenging place to keep up with. So, well, we appreciate it. Yingli, it was a really great story. Appreciate you sharing your insights.
It's my great pleasure to be here. And if everybody needs more kind of tips and thoughts about fraud protection and endless kind of stories and tips, happy to share all the time.
Thanks. You've been listening to Yinglian Xie. This is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. Listen, watch, subscribe wherever you get your podcast or at rebootchronicles.com.